Good morning and welcome to the Buy the Book channel, the YouTube channel. I am so happy today to introduce our members and anyone else that's watching to the wonderful Abby Wynne, who is a beautiful Irish author, in particular a wellness author, but much more. I'll let Abby introduce herself. So good morning, Abby.
Wow, you just blew me away there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Abby.
Very sweet of you. Use all the nice words to warm me up. I know your plan.
Yeah. So, Abby, I am a fan. As I've mentioned, I love your books. Some of your titles, How to Be Well, Heal Your Inner Wounds, and also your beautiful diary, One Day at a Time. Just, such beautiful work, such interesting work, so needed, especially in this time. Maybe we can start our conversation from the beginning, because I'm always kind of interested to know, the life before, you were a writer as such, or an author. So you might bring us back in time a bit to then. So your life before you started writing.
Well, like when I was 3. I've been writing ever since I could write.
So, well, maybe just a bit, I suppose we could start where you went to university in Galway, similar to myself, and you studied marine biology.
Yes, you did mention that. I studied marine biology.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think my ability to write really came through in my master's degree when I did a dreadful experiment out of obligation to my supervisor, with scraps and pieces of reasoning behind why we were doing what we were doing. And I really did not want to put it in my thesis, my master's degree. And he said, oh, but the professor from whatever other college really needs to see this. And we've got some money in the bag, so it has to go in. So you have to go in. So I had to sit down with these pieces and look at the experiment I did and try and magic up some logical way as to why we did the experiment, and even though the outcome was terrible, what the potential trajectory of thought could be from what we did. And I came up with a whole new theory of evolution.
Okay.
Which, if you were to step back from Darwin's theory or anybody's theory about anything, why couldn't it be just as valid as any other theory? It's just because the weight of everybody's belief is behind a structure that already existed doesn't mean, means really well in the scientific world. And I was told by a friend who's a professor over in San Francisco University that I would be obliterated because I didn't have a PhD, but the idea was just as valid as anybody else's. I thought, well, okay, is there a place for magic in the world?
Okay.
But because of severe competition and funding difficulties, and I wasn't in love with the science, that's why I didn't proceed on to a PhD, and ended up doing teaching for a while. So I did teaching, and I was writing as a script writer, as a subject matter expert, teaching people how to use computers. So I've always been writing, and in that particular part of my career path, working for a wonderful company with a fabulous name called Electric Paper. Or isn't that a great name? That was before we really got into everything on the internet. This would have been when I was pregnant with Megan, so let's say 21 years ago. But I went into the process of learning that you do need to be edited. So you have this emotional attachment to what you write, and then your editor comes and, not this, say this differently, this is irrelevant. So I had to get over myself.
Okay.
And I went through a learning curve, surrounded by wonderful editors, really, really good at their job, to be able to write to a remit, to be able to write, this is what we want, put it in here, and that's all. And do it as quickly as you can and as clearly as you can. And that's always been the way that I was thinking anyway. So taking that training into creating courses myself, working as a course designer, still in IT. Then I did the psychotherapy, then I mixed it with my energy healing. And I was actually only on Monday re-recording a chapter of Energy Healing Basics, which I did for Hay House. They actually commissioned that one for me. They told me what they wanted. Now I'm recording it as an audiobook. How many
brilliant.
years later? So hopefully that will be coming out shortly. Somebody turned the washing machine on when I was recording that, and they couldn't get it out, so I had to do it again. but revisiting what I had written all those years ago, and my mentality then is exactly my mentality now, which is just
that's amazing.
That the way I was thinking, to just apply it to different things. But anyway, yeah, in that chapter 1, I talk about my background and my history, why I'm doing what I'm doing, which is, really, you can see that I'll probably never write my life in a book.
Really?
But the new ones are probably as close as I'm ever going to get to doing it. It's not me, I swear. My character in my new novels is not me. But a lot of the experiences that she has are based on things that have happened. Through. Yeah, woven through.
So in terms of then your first book, was that How to Be Well? Was that your first book?
No.
Or was that the Energy Healing?
No.
Which one was your first?
I've been writing quite a lot. Writing wasn't scary. I mean, I used to say the scariest thing is a blank page, but I would always have something to say, because to me it was like the pint of Guinness. You write the shite on the top and then you get down to the good stuff. So I knew that you have to just get it out there until the stuff comes through. So I became a Reiki master teacher and set up my healing therapy practice, and saw the same things coming up again and again and again and again in all of my clients. And I have, my tolerance for repetition. I would never be an actor. I could never get up on stage and do the same thing every night. I'd be so bored. I mean, yes, I know the audience is different. Yes, I know everybody, it's different every time for them. But for me, yeah, I've done it already. I'm always looking for the new thing. And so my Reiki students said to me, well, how are we going to remember to do Reiki after the Reiki classes? Now, I had created the workbooks for them, because when you do Reiki, you get a workbook and it explains everything that we've done. So that's a manual, a training manual. And I've written training manuals for everything. Wrote the training manual for Reiki, but then they said, yeah, but what about, doing Reiki outside of training? So I came up with the energy healing for everyone, which is basically Reiki in the morning, Reiki in the afternoon, Reiki in the evening, Reiki at night. And I was in the business at that stage. I had my practice. I had met people on social media. And so I sent my manuscript to somebody that I highly respected in the area of medical Reiki, to say to her, do you think this would be useful for people who aren't my students, who might be interested in Reiki in the morning, Reiki? So she read it and she came back and she said, that's not Reiki. I'm like, oh no. So okay, so being used to having editors / everything I've written, I had to rethink the whole thing, and I realized, no, she's right. It isn't Reiki. It's shamanism. It's shamanic energy healing, and everything at the fundamentals of everything is shamanic, because all shamanism means is listening to what is here, the things you see, the things you don't see, the things you hear, the things you don't hear, the things you feel in your heart. So I wrote what do you call it? Not a preface, a part 1, and I made Reiki in the morning and the afternoon. I made that part 2.
Okay.
And I wrote a part 1, what is energy healing? And then I took out the word Reiki and I made it energy healing. And I found a woman on social media who helped me put it together, made it very pretty. And that was a self-published book with Balboa Press, because I decided that was going to be my first book and that I was going to be published by Hay House. And so I wanted the Hay House stamp on my first book, even though it was from their self-publishing house.
Okay.
So I did it. Yeah, it wasn't a good experience working with Balboa Press. I have no hesitation to say that, but I did it to get the Hay House logo on a book that I had published. And I think it actually worked when I had it because I have published 2 books.
Yeah, wow. I didn't even know that was an option. So you can self-publish through Hay House.
Hay House have a publishing house called Balboa Press.
Okay.
And Balboa Press is like, they are a little fussy, but they're only a little fussy. So it has to be within the remit of something that Hay House themselves might actually publish. So you couldn't be publishing novels through Balboa Press. It would have to be, self-help, spirituality, that kind of thing. And so they would do an assessment with you. They have a meeting, and then if they like what you have to offer, you pay them for whatever package you want.
Okay. And then you and do they sell your book? Do they sell your book for you, or do you do that yourself?
They distribute it.
Okay.
But they don't. So I suppose in a way, I haven't checked them out recently, but there's more and more. There wasn't many self-publishing houses like that at the time. So I would imagine that nowadays they would be forced to offer more around the marketing distribution package type things as well. But again, you'd be paying somebody to help you to do that.
Yeah. And was that then the stepping stone to the bestseller book, How to Be Well?
Well, what happened next was I had been writing emails, doing my marketing, setting up my website and all of that. And I'd be writing a weekly email, and they were actually pretty good, I thought. And I didn't want to just trash them. Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
This was my very first year. So I collated all my emails from the first year that I sent emails. And I made a book called Spiritual Tips for Enlightenment. And I thought, this is a bit naff without pictures. I want pictures, but how can I get pictures without having to pay copyright? So I held a competition, and it got a lot of people coming in, and I said, send me all your pictures. I need pictures for January, February, all the way through, November, December. And I will put a picture for each month in the book, and everyone who wins gets a copy of the book and to get your picture at my book. And they're like, ooh, that's so great. So that was my second book, and I self-published that, but I didn't go to Balboa Press with that one. I went to Amazon.
Okay, yeah, very good.
So that was a different experience, and that was very interesting.
Yeah.
So that all came together quickly. And in the meantime, then, I don't know if people who are watching this are spiritual or would understand if I was to say to you, my guides told me it was time to write a bigger book, something a bit more meaty. And it had been percolating in the ethers for a while. So I thought it was going to be around the same remit of what I had already done. They're very quick to read, they're easy to dip into. And when I have Spiritual Tips for Enlightenment printed out and in my hand, and people are looking through it, like at the Mind Body Spirit Fair, they go, oh, this is great, you can just open to a page and there's something there for you. And you can close the book and you can pick it up when you need it. So I thought that's what I was writing. So I canceled all my clients for, I think it was about 10 days. And I decided I was going to do, because I've been listening to a lot of Brian Tracy. How do you write a proper, a big book, proper book? How do you do it? And he said, just speak, So I I had my trusty iPhone, turned everything off, and just started to talk everything that I wanted to put in the book. And I remember turning around halfway through the 10 days and giving out to my guides, saying, you knew this wasn't going to be what I thought it was going to be. You just got me where you wanted me, and now you're giving me this massive book. And that was How to Be Well. Wow. And it was massive. It was 80,000 words. So I spoke all the chapters out, and then I sat with what I had spoken. And as I transcribed it, more came. So it was like the spoken word was the framework. And then as I sat down to write, and the whole thing came together, and it was stunning. But I didn't have any plans for that book. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And
someone else had plans.
Yeah, well, I figured this one wasn't for me to publish. I just had this sense that it wasn't. And I had done the whole thing with the Balboa Press. I said, well, maybe it does have to go to Hay House. So at the time where I had, I would say, a really good working draft copy, it was quite clean, because having been through the processes of writing, there's not a lot of edits to do on a lot of the work that I do. I submitted it actually to Gill and Macmillan, because Irish, they're there, and Gill and Macmillan, and they wrote back and they said they really liked it, but they like to do co-creations, and they didn't know what they could offer me. Because it seemed like a finished product.
Right.
So that to me was very difficult to get my head around. First of all, thinking it was a finished product that I did myself with no help, but secondly, that they wouldn't, even though it was a good book. So there was a writing, I think there was one of these wonderful things that Vanessa Loughlin puts on, Writers Inc. There was, like 3 days, meet the authors, meet the agents, that kind of thing. And I grabbed her and I said, I have a book and I don't know what to do next. What do we do? So she said, let's have a meeting privately and we'll talk about it. So I met her in a cafe and she told me how to do a book pitch. And I wrote a book pitch and I sent the whole book and the book pitch to Hay House. And then I forgot about it and I got on with my life. But I kept checking in and I kept coming back, and I kept, and it's like, oh, what's going on? And I remember I met her, I bumped into her 6 months later and I said, it's been 6 months and I haven't heard from them. Is that bad? And she's actually, no, it's not bad. It doesn't mean anything. In fact, it could just be sitting somewhere and they could have forgotten. Give them a nudge. You're allowed to do that. So I said, okay, Vanessa says I can give them a nudge. So I gave them a nudge, and I got Amy, who is the commissioning editor, wrote back to me. And she goes, oh, we didn't know about this. Give me a couple of weeks. I want to read it. So she came back and she said that they loved the book, but could I write an energy healing book, because she really liked my energy healing for everyone. So like you, she went off and did a research on me, came back and said, well, you know, your energy healing for everyone that you wrote with the Reiki in the morning Reiki, but it's not Reiki. Can you write that for us for a new series that we're doing about energy healing? So that was my commission from Hay House. That was the first book that I did, and that's how that happened. So
wow, that's some story.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I wrote it really quickly, and it came through, and it wasn't one of these books where you're reading and reading and reading and waiting for the meat of every single sentence. For me is substantial in that book. So
wow. I mean, yeah, that's incredible that you had Vanessa at that time to, I suppose, help you, not just with the pitch,
oh,
but that
it was invaluable. Yeah,
but the nudge, just when you're saying about the nudge, you know, that was, I suppose, the difference maybe in hearing back or not hearing back. You know, which is incredible that we are allowed to do that. We are allowed to nudge. We are allowed to follow up and ask.
Oh, I was terrified. Will they hate me if they think I'm pushy? You know, if I get in touch, you know, and it's like, now that I know Amy, it's like she doesn't mind at all, but that's not the point. The point is you don't know them before you're starting.
Yeah.
So,
no, that's incredible. And how, so when your book, How to Be Well, when that went up to bestseller status, how did that feel for you?
I remember my father has a house in Portugal. That's actually being sold now because not being able to get there and stuff, you know, with the pandemic, and it's just too much of a mess. But we would spend a whole month every year there, me and my children and my husband, and it was really a time away from everything, which is great. And myself and my daughter were working on a coloring book together at the time, and we had connected him with Angie Grace, who, I don't know if anybody's heard of her, but she's multi-million best-selling author in America of coloring books.
Okay.
Literally, she would come out with a coloring book at that time and she'd get $2 million for it within 2 weeks. And it was all self-published.
Wow.
She did not have to sell it.
Wow.
Her people just came and bought the head of it. Because she had coloring groups on Facebook, and I met her through Facebook. I don't know how, but we kind of connected. And so she was going to launch our coloring book, and we were going to launch her coloring book. They put them out at the same time in July. But I didn't know anything about looking at, and I didn't want to, you know, look at reviews, looking at charts, looking at everything. And, you know, I was there with my daughter. We were preparing to launch a coloring book. And I get this note from Angie Grace in Facebook Messenger. Have you seen the Amazon charts? And I'm like, no. And it was nighttime. The kids were in bed, and she said, you're #1 bestseller in Amazon right now with How to Be Well. And I'm like, what? I don't know. I'm not. She said, quick. And she took a screenshot of it. She said, you don't know how long it's going to last. You have to make the most of this. Quick, tell everybody. Go there. It was unbelievable. Wow. My head was spinning, and it was like, because I was in Portugal and I disconnected from everything. It was like, it wasn't real at all. But yeah, and it's happened several times since. The same book has gone several times. I think it was last summer. Hay House did a special, and they promoted a whole suite of books, and How to Be Well was one of them. And it went to the top in alchemy. It went to the top in spirituality. And I'm going, well, that's where I want to be. Alchemy, spirituality, self-help. It was stress management was the first time it hit bestseller #1 was it stress management. So
congratulations. That's just phenomenal.
Just, to me, it's just like, I can't relate to it. You know, when people write to me and say, I read your book, it saved my life.
Oh,
you know, and they do. And people have told me through the pandemic, the only thing that got them going was how to be, you know, one day at a time diary that I now do with Gil. Because I wrote to Gil after all of the excitement. And once it had died down, and I said, okay, you said we could do a co-creation. What do you have in mind? And they actually said, yeah, great. And they came and they met me, and that was the diary.
That's
We actually
brilliant.
have a book as well, because my same mentality of not wanting to throw away all my emails to make a book out of them was, well, I don't want to throw away all the affirmations. Let's make a book out of them. So we did the book of healing affirmations, which goes with the diary, which is lesser known, but it's you know, and I think in that book we go deeper into the healing processes of how to work with affirmations. So two together are very powerful.
Wow, I love that, Abby. I love that you took that, I suppose, rejection. You know, you just parked it, but you went back. I think that's amazing. And you went back and you said, okay, now that you've suggested that, and then you had then this other bestseller with that, you know, a lot of people maybe wouldn't go back. They would take it, you know, as a rejection, but you didn't.
But you see, the work that I do, and I'll tell you, there was a particular client of mine. Really, you know, you learn so much from working with people, and she is very gifted, and she was working for a company, and they were making her do all these things that she didn't want to do, but she was afraid to leave because she thought that she would have nothing afterwards. So I said to her, the work you do, imagine that's your light, that's your brightness, that's your spark, that's your creativity, and they're making money off of you doing what you do best. When you leave, you take that with you. That's always yours. And I remember in me, when I say things like that to other people, it's like something in me opens and kind of goes, now you have to listen to this too. You know, so I'm listening to it as well. It's like, so the light is in me. And you were just describing there when we were having our little hello before you started recording, how some of the authors that are involved with you have been with other publishers and now they're publishing on their own. And it's the same thing, to get the power is in me. I'm the one that's publishing the stuff that I'm good at publishing. The publisher is helping me. I don't work for them. And if they're not going to do it, someone else will. And if they don't, then I will. And that's kind of how I've, you know, lived, because Hay House, we're even though How to Be Well has been a bestseller, I think maybe 3 or 4 times now, it still hasn't sold enough for them to be happy with me to say, well, what are we doing next? You know, put the hands right, what do we do next? I have loads of next. I mean, my next book I had already started was called Heal Your Inner Wounds. And I went to them and I said, well, actually, I'm writing How to Be Well chapter 5 needs to be expanded into a whole book. The chapter is called Heal Your Inner Wounds, and you can't do that in one chapter. You know, and they say, oh, well, you haven't sold enough books, so, you know, you're free to go and visit anybody else you like. And to me, I was devastated when they said that. However, that was the biggest blessing that I could have received. And like these things that drop like a lead weight in the moment, and you think you're going to drown and it pulls you under, you don't see the gift in it until you've recovered from that deflation, because you've invested so much in your idea of who you are. You know, you don't get cocky going around thinking, well, I'm a Hay House author for the rest of my life and they're always going to do it, you know. And there are people who are Hay House authors for the rest of their life, but you know, it's like, where's the light then? And I want to always be owning me. And not being told, you know, one of the authors there was saying to me, they have a list of 12 or 13 things and they get to pick which one they want off the list, but anything that's not on the list isn't necessarily up for grabs, you know. So,
wow.
Wow. I like my freedom. So I've had a lot of trouble during this pandemic.
And you come across anyway as you're, you know, you are very authentic. And, you know, in a way, it's like, you know, if you go with a publishing house, in a way, are you a bit boxed? You know, and you're very much, you know, in a way commercialized, and, you know, in a way, there's conflicting, I suppose, wants from either the author or the house, because they have a budget, and it's very financially driven, obviously, with sales. Where from an author, you know, we're naturally creative, you know, and we want to be maybe able to explore that a bit. So there's a balancing act. There's a balancing act there, I think, too.
Absolutely. And, you know, there is the compromise, like around cover. You know, for me, the most disappointing cover of all of my books is Heal Your Inner Wounds. Because for me, healing your inner wounds requires strength and courage. And I wanted a lion on the cover to invoke people's inner strength and courage. You say, here's your power animal, here's your lion, and it's going to be with you as you go into this, because the inner wounds are wounds and they're difficult. And I have no hesitation that people cannot go lightly into inner wounding. It's a very serious book. And they have, no, we'll have a little pretty bird and we're going to hold a flower in his mouth because we're going to focus on how great you're going to feel afterwards. And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't read it yet. Okay. So I didn't go back to Llewellyn for another book, because that, to me, that they didn't hear anything that I said. And for me, healing is about being heard.
Wow. And out of interest then, Abby, when you go with a publisher, do they retain rights for your book for a certain period? How does that work? Do you get the rights? Do the rights come back to you at some stage? And what's the general
I haven't
time?
Investigated that. With Balboa Press, there was a bit of trouble because I decided that they weren't worth the effort and they weren't fulfilling orders. And as I changed and grew energetically, I wanted the energy to change. So I republished Energy Healing for Everyone through Amazon Kindle. You create space as well. And because I own the rights to that book, I just didn't put the link up to sell it. The Balboa Press version, I just put up the Amazon Create Space version because it was my book, it wasn't theirs. But as far as I'm aware, I mean, I have to say, now that I'm here and I can see the wider picture of things, Hay House has been doing a stunning job with my stuff. They've got Energy Healing Made Easy, which has been rebranded into Made Easy. It was written as Energy Healing Basics, has been published now through Foreign Rights. I don't know, in Swedish, Croatian, How to Be Well is in Polish. I think they're translating it right now into Norwegian. You know, I couldn't do that myself. So they're still, you know, and they bring it to the book fair, and I just believe in God. I have huge faith. I mean, faith would be the one that nudged me to nudge Vanessa to ask her, should I give Hay House a nudge, or to, you know, it's all of that the book was ready to come through. And so if the Foreign Rights publisher sees my book in the corner and goes, no, that's the one I want, then I know they'll see it if it's supposed to be.
If it's supposed to be,
I mean, I've had it in Italian. I have a bookshelf at home now with all these different languages. Turkish, I think, is one of them. It's fantastic, you know, and all I say is I just want a copy of the book in a different language. But I had a translator write to me at one point because she was translating a piece that I had said and she didn't quite understand what I meant. And it was lovely to have a conversation because she wanted the authenticity to come through, and she wanted to understand what I meant by a particular phrase. And I really appreciated that. So I'm delighted, you know, with that. It's like I have a more mature relationship now with Hay House, knowing what to expect, knowing what they can do. And I was added into their new app. They have an app which is all audio and podcast and interviews. And I was interviewed by somebody and they put me in the app and I'm there. So why don't we do more things? So they're okay, why don't you record Energy Healing Made Easy as an audiobook? And I say, great, let's do it. You know, so.
Wow, that's brilliant. Yeah. They've continued to have an interest in you, and they've continued to develop, I suppose, with you. And even though you're not fully with them, it's still part of your.
I prefer it that way. Yeah. I prefer it that because then it gives me the freedom to do one day at a time with Gil.
Exactly.
And I just saw the 2022 diary and oh my God,
wow, already.
I have to say, I've written it and I just saw the proof. I haven't seen the actual book. I've seen it's the best. It's the most beautiful one of the last 3 years. I have to say.
Wow.
I'm excited to see this one.
Congratulations.
So things like that, you know, different energies for different things. And now I'm writing novels, I'm writing fiction, magical realism, and I want to publish that myself because that gives me the scope to not need to have to explain myself to someone else. Why are you doing it like this? You know, so I actually, which is really interesting, the editor for How to Be Well went freelance and we had a wonderful relationship. So I wrote to her and I said, would you edit my novels for me? So she is my editor.
Brilliant.
For these novels. And she said, oh, I don't know, I've only done a few fiction books, but she's already changed the opening. She's woven her magic in as well, and it's just really put a spin on it. It's really, I'm really excited about that. So
wow, that's brilliant. And how will you go when the books come back from her? What are the next steps with you then in terms of taking those 3 novels through the self-publishing process?
Oh, well, where I am at the moment is on my 3rd or 4th draft of book 1.
Okay.
So she's edited that. I've made all her changes, and I'm going through it again and just making it more beautiful, you know, putting in more depth, maybe just very subtle things. But because I've finished writing book 2, I know my character so much better that I can go, oh, well, he wouldn't have said that when I didn't really know him in book 1. So I tweaking it and changing it. And it's like, oh, I wanted to give the cat a little bit more of a role. So why not, make more of the cat in the first book? But I've only written the first draft of book 2. So when I've done the tweaking and the beautiful beauty edit of book 1, I'm going to go through book 2 and edit that whole thing, and then I'll give that to my editor. And when she has that, I'm going to write book 3. So that's where I am. So I'm really at the bringing out, because what I think, it's kind of it's a gift in a way to have the 3 books, the drafts, unpublished, so that if something does happen in book 3 that needs to ripple backwards through books 2 and 1, or hints and breadcrumbs, because I don't like to tell everybody what's going to happen. You have to drop the breadcrumbs, because readers are intelligent and they want to come along for the ride. They don't want to be told everything.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that kind of show up. They go, oh, well, if I said that over here, then it kind of balances here,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, it's a big project to take on, to do the 3, I suppose, all at once. But I suppose you've so many years now experience behind you, and you're almost able to take the experience of going through a traditional publishing house, doing your own self-publishing, and now you're able to put everything in, to make this trilogy the best way, not just work for you, but also to give your readers this experience, as you said, of really weaving the 3 together.
I know, and it's also, this deep feeling here where I still haven't forgiven George Martin for not finishing Game of Thrones. So I promised my readers I would never do that. And if I say it's a trilogy, there will always be a 3rd book.
Yeah, exactly.
Patrick Rothfuss, I don't know if anybody reads Patrick Rothfuss. His books are exquisite, and he's only got 2 out of his trilogy, and I think it's 13 years later, and it's still waiting for book 3.
Oh, wow, that's a long time.
It's a long time. But yeah, so I'm enjoying this, because I never thought I could write fiction. But I always wanted to. And for me, magical realism is Isabel Allende and her book, The House of the Spirits, where some people don't see the spirits and other people do. Look, there's your dead grandmother up on the stairs. And for me and my clients can see spirit, and then, it's normal for them. So why not make it more normal for everybody to appreciate? So I was thinking, it's like if Hermione from Harry Potter was a therapist, would this be, this is Harry Potter for grown-ups in the real world, with a therapist who's working with angels and power animals, and they walk into the room and she can feel them. And, and it's mundane things like making the tea and getting the bus into work, because that's what we do. But then there's an angel, or then there's something else. I'm not going to do any spoilers, but I've given it to a few people to read, and they've been clamoring for the 2nd book already, which I haven't, well, I've shared it with one person, but not, and she read it without book 1, and she liked it. So I'm going, oh, that's really great. So I know these ones are what's next. And for me, Stephen King was always my hero growing up. And I was reading Wilbur Smith a lot last year. And I did when you're an author then, and you're going to go into self-publishing, you need to check, well, what's going on now? What are the latest? So I went to a seminar, online seminar, and someone told me about your Goodreads profile, and that it's really important to get a Goodreads profile. So I went to my Goodreads profile to do it up, and there's a note that says, if you like this author, then how about these other authors? So I thought, oh, well, I wonder who they're saying for me. So I said, if you like Abby Wynne, then how about these other authors? So I clicked it and I was like this. And then I looked and it was Stephen King, Isabel Allende, Wilbur Smith. And I'm like, what the hell? I haven't published my novels yet.
That's incredible.
I haven't published my novels yet. It wasn't self-help people. It was, and I'm going, that's incredible. So this to me is and I took a screenshot of that along with my book at #1 bestseller and all those, just to remind myself in those days that you have those moments where you go, why am I doing this? I'm not good at this. This isn't, so the universe gives you these stamps of approval
signs
that only you would understand. Take the screenshots, anyone who's watching this, keep them there for the days where, things are crushing you, because I had those days where I was driven down by the weight of rejection when Hay House said you haven't sold enough books. But what was really interesting to me was I get invited to the author party every year. Yes, we did it all on Zoom last, it wasn't so good at Christmas this time, but hopefully this Christmas, maybe we can all meet in person again. But it was at a Hay House Christmas party where I met an author whose book won a competition. They published it because the idea of it was important, because they had published a lot of Christianity. So this guy wrote about Muslim faith. And they said to him that his book wasn't selling enough. And he was devastated. And I said to him, yeah, but it wasn't selling enough for commercial purposes. I said, but what if one person read your book and changed their life? What if another person read your book and it saved their life? And they're never going to tell you, and you're never going to know, and just see it as a shooting star going out to the world, and that you just step back and you don't own it anymore because it came through you and goes out. And that's how I hold my work. And so, because if I was to believe everything, my head would be so big and I'd never get anything done. So I just said, no, it's not mine. But just confirmation, which might be really interesting to know, when Hay House did come back and say, right, we'll take on How to Be Well, but it's 80,000 words and we only want 60. Can you edit it? That was a challenge. And I was thinking, well, which bit can I take out? I don't know how to take bits out. And I spoke to a very good friend of mine who I met in my days at Electric Paper, he's a college professor of literacy, literature. He understands all this stuff. And he said, why don't you just rewrite it? And I'm like, oh, okay, I could do that. So I sat down with nothing to rewrite it from scratch. And I wrote everything out. And I go, this is very familiar. And I pulled up the document with the original book and it was exactly the same.
Wow.
So these books are living beings. These books are living beings, not just my books, other people's books. If you ever read Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert, she describes a kiss that she gave to Anne Patchett, where she believes a book she was working on left her and went into Anne Patchett because the book knew that she would not be able to write it. And then they met several years later. Elizabeth Gilbert still trying to write this book that she couldn't write because she had separated from it because she had family issues. And Anne Patchett says, well, I'm almost finished my book. And Elizabeth says, oh, that's wonderful. My book's not going anywhere. So tell me all about your book. So Anne Patchett tells her the book, and it's the plot of the book that she was trying to write. Only it was in a different year and a different country, but it was the same plot. So these books are living, breathing things. And, and I said to an author who had severe writer's block, I said, it's not about you. You have to be the channel. You have to, so clear your energy and sit and say, okay, I'm ready now. Where's the book? Which book was lining up at the door, like someone coming to visit. And I will do you service, and I promise you that I'll show up every day and I will write. And even if I don't like what I'm writing, I will write because this is what you want me to do. It's like me giving out to my guides and saying, this isn't the book that I was supposed to be writing. Said, yeah, it's the book you didn't think you were writing. It's got nothing to do with what you want. And I think that's why I'm so prolific, because I just step out of the way and let the books just spill through me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's incredible. Yeah. I mean, I can definitely relate to that in the sense that I would have half written anyway, 2 or 3 books. And then I got to the stage where none of them, I just had a feeling, whether it was a gut feeling or something else, that they weren't to be my first book. And when I got a feeling for what my first book was going to be, it did kind of flow through me, and it was done in 3 weeks,
Yeah.
really most of it. And, you know, the other books are still there somewhere on my laptop. Whether I'll revisit them or not, I don't know. But I know that I do listen to that feeling and that good instinct around, you know, what I should be writing about and when. I think timing is an important thing as much as anything, as in when to send it out to the world.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I had How to Be Well, I think, for nearly 2 or 3 years before the world was ready for it. And so again, it's the dance of divine timing, which is not our timing. You know, but what's the point in getting a book out now when the world's not ready for it? No one's going to pick it up. Whereas if you hold on to it for another year and then out it comes, bang, and everybody, oh, this is the one that I want now. And then it's the difference between, you know, and the book has to have its own say in this. You know, if the book is choosing you, then it certainly doesn't want to be published when nobody is listening to it. You know, it wants attention, you know, probably more than you do. You know, the book wants all the attention and I don't. You know, that's how I see it. So
that's a great way of looking at it. So Abby, if you were to then look back on your amazing career,
I feel like I'm only starting, I have to say.
And I'm sure you are, especially with the fiction now. It's probably a whole new journey and path for you. But if you were to give, I suppose, either your younger self or other authors out there, just some advice based on your own experience, what would it be? And we might kind of, you know, summarize with that, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
To realize that whatever you're going through in the moment is surrounded by and permeated by the energy of what you're going through in the moment. And that you just don't know, you can't see beyond that because you're in it. And if you're enjoying it, wonderful. But if it's difficult, if it's hard, if it's not going your way, that's also part of it. You know, the pages and pages of stuff that I've written and thrown away is me developing my voice. The books that you've written and haven't gone back to is you deciding how you're not going to speak or learning, you know, construction and things like that. And that it's only when you step back from that energy and say, okay, this energy isn't working for me, I want to clear it. Bring the idea that you can into that. You're not helpless. You know, say, okay, it's like I said to that person with writer's block. You know, you can wallow in self-pity and go, oh, I can't write. Or you can say, okay, there's something in the energy here that needs to change. I mean, I'm an energy healer. You know, I mean, even I'm not saying come to me and I'll help you, but you could, you know, or you could go to another energy healer, or you could say, okay, well, how can I change my energy? It's like Einstein working at the problem, not getting anywhere. He goes off and plays the violin for a few hours and then solution drops in. So go, okay, so I'm clouded over by this energy. It's not going my way. It's not the way I think I want it. To see the bigger picture, it's not always about you. And energy is also, you know, I've learned an awful lot about astrology in the last few years. And I think one day at a time diary for the last few years, when it's been based on astrological themes, I get an astrological forecast of the year ahead and I write around what's coming to support people through that. It's really been much more helpful to them than me going, oh, February is a lovely month to declutter. You know, whereas astrologically, I don't know, February is going to be a really difficult month emotionally. So let's forget about the decluttering and just look after ourselves for February. And people are going, why? You know, oh yeah, geez, I really needed that, you know. So about being with what is and knowing that it will pass. And if it's the light is in you, your creativity is in you, you bring that everywhere you go. And if you're somewhere where you're feeling your light is dim, like being boxed in by a publisher, to take a step back and go, okay, is there a reason for that? Is there a bigger picture for that? Or do I have to put up with this? What you know, what are my boundaries? What do I need? And to get help if you need help.
Wow.
Because, you know, we all think we have to do this all on our own. And I think testimony to you that you've set up, you know, by the book, which is to help people not do things on their own, to say that there is community, because somebody could be having a bad day, but somebody else could be having a good day. And so you lean on each other to get through it. And that's important.
Wow. What a lovely message, Abby. Yeah, you really, you know, because I think we definitely all have those weeks, sometimes months, even days, where we do question things, you know, and the world of being a writer can be very testing. You know, we face, you know, maybe a critical review or someone just not getting our message. But, you know, what I've really taken from that is, you know, maybe there's just some people that aren't ready to hear your message, and that's fine too. And it's up to us to kind of pull back to and question, you know, is there something that, you know, that feeling is teaching us, and is there something we need to clear, and is there, you know, maybe do we need to take a few days off to come back into it?
Oh, absolutely. And screenshot the good stuff. My brother used to say, you know, why are you not looking at the reviews? And I said, because, do you know why? Because people have told me that the book has changed their lives, and that's all I need to hear. And the people who don't want to change their lives, the people who are stuck in the way that they think, and my work is hurting them because it's showing them that the way they think might not be healthy for them. I don't care. When they're ready, they'll wake up and they'll want it or they won't want it. I can't change the world. People have to want to change. Was that like the light bulb? So if I was going to get upset about everyone or anyone who would read something in one of my books and you know, take offended by that, you'd be there forever. You'd lose your energy. When I have my energy, I'd rather put it into creating something else.
Yeah. Wow. It's been such an amazing conversation. It's been so lovely to meet you. As I said, I am a fan. And I know
it's a pretty bird with the flower.
You don't like the cover, but you know, I am working my way through this. The
book itself is really good. I'm really proud of that book.
Yeah.
You know, I think how to be well and heal your inner wounds. If anybody ever says that we should have been born for a manual for life, I mean, those two books are it. And I haven't felt the need to write any more self-help after those, because I think it's all in there. But my sense is after these novels, I'll probably write that emotional eating book that I keep promising I'm going to write.
Yeah, I did see that on your website. So you're in terms of then just two quick last questions. One is, when is your beautiful diary available? Because I made the mistake this year. God,
I know they all sold out.
Yeah, I tried to get it in January and it was 6 weeks. So
November.
Yeah, so November is available. Okay.
November, December, yeah.
And then your website is, if you want to share that.
ABBY-WYNNE, but you could just look me up. I mean, I'm all over Google. It's kind of scary how much you found out about me and I didn't even know. I will Google, Facebook, I'm everywhere, LinkedIn. I've got an academy website now, Abby's Online Academy, where I do healing sessions on there. I've set up a school for healing programs. So I'm actually recording Heal Your Inner Wounds, each chapter as a healing program. So you can read the chapter, and if you want to go deeper, you can take the program for chapter 1 or the program for chapter 2. So I've got 3 chapters done now. Okay. And that's ticking away there in the background as well. Brilliant. Because I just want the work to get out to as many people as possible, make it as accessible as possible. And hopefully I'll be reading How to Be Well for an audiobook for Hay House as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you might let us know when that's available. Abby, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've taken so much of your time, but you've shared so much.
Not at all. It's great, you know, and everybody starts somewhere. I remember Brian Tracy was a big inspiration for me when I started out. And he's like, all the experts that are out there now started off not knowing anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the best thing an expert can do is help somebody who feels that they don't know anything.
Yeah.
And then when they become the expert, they do the same thing.
They pass it on.
And it's like a lifetime away where I was hearing him say that and thinking, now I'll never be able to do that. But it's a gift to me to be generous of heart to anybody, because there's plenty of room for everybody out there. Everybody has, you know, and there's loads of books waiting to be written.
There is, and loads of stories waiting to be shared. You know, I'm definitely seeing that coming through now by the book. Just so much talent, and I'm sure everyone will get something out of our discussion today. And I look forward to staying in touch now that we've actually met each other.
Absolutely, yes. I'll be calling on you as soon as I get my novels ready to go.
Please do, Abby. That would be amazing. Okay, well, look, have a lovely day, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you, Abby.
Okay, bye.